Now, over the weekend, people were looking again at the maths and at the cases going up. And the question they're always asking, and it's a valid question, okay, we get huge numbers of cases. We did on Saturday, we did on Sunday. Massive numbers of cases, but the numbers in hospital and the numbers in intensive care are still very small relative to what they were back in March or April. Now, this morning, the consultants and the intensive care organisations are really warning, look, we can't sustain this if the cases continue to rise. We're at a critical level now because other medicine is going to start to suffer. But let's have a look at the numbers versus the people in hospital. And Diarmuid McCarthy is a maths teacher in Carrigaline Community School, and you did some, and I recognised it, Diarmuid, some good basic Leaving Cert maths on exponential numbers and R numbers over the weekend. Now, we will share the video for people who want to watch it, but effectively, Diarmuid, I think you're telling us, focus on the R number, and as that rises, we're in trouble. Good morning.
Morning, PJ. How are things? Yeah. It's a lot of it is very simple, really. You know, I like everybody, I've been looking at the numbers since day one. You know, numbers going up, going down, and more importantly, I'm trying to make meaning out of these numbers. And like, one thing that a lot of people are seeing as well is just the rise of all these conspiracy theorists and things like that. And like, you know, they range from anti-mask, anti-vaccine, people who think that, I don't know, Micheál and Leo are space lizards from Mars or something like this. And, you know, a lot of those people, you know, you can't argue with them because they just refuse to believe any statistics or any maths or anything. So there's no point arguing with them. But there's two articles put out in the newspapers there over the last week. One, a lot of people will be familiar with, it was in the Irish Times full-page ad. And basically, as you were saying there, he was highlighting the low numbers of ICU cases, the low numbers of deaths. And he was basically, his conclusion was that why are we shutting down the country for this low number of deaths when you compare it to car crashes, cancer, things like that? It's even smaller than all of those. Now, the problem, as you kind of mentioned there, is that what he didn't take into account was exponential growth. And like, exponential growth is basically if you start...
Explain that in layman's terms, Diarmuid. I did honours maths, so I know what it is, but explain that in layman's terms what exponential growth is.
Yeah, it's very simple, really. If you start with 10, if you double that to give you 20, double that to give you 40, double that to give you 80, etc., that's called a geometric sequence, and that's your essential or your exponential growth. And in that case, the 2 in that case is called your common factor because you're multiplying by 2 each time, and that's where our famous R number comes from. So basically, if you have 10 people with the virus, and if they take no precautions, then what scientists think is that at the end of the week, or by the time that they're not infectious anymore, they will have infected three people each. Right? That's a very small number, but if there's 10 people, that's 30 people now in week 2 who are infectious, and 90 people in week 3, 270 in week 4, and you can see there how that grows. And like, at the moment, just because of all our precautions, everything the government has in all these lockdowns, the R number has gone from 3 down to 1.2. But the problem with that then is that, like, and everybody knows that back in June when the numbers were really, really, really low, if you started with an initial value of 10, next week you have 12, next week you have about 15, and like, again, really, really tiny numbers. But the beauty of exponential growth is as the weeks go by, we end up where we are at the moment, and that's with 1,000 cases a week. And you can mark my words that next week it's going to be up to 1,500, and next week it's going to grow higher and higher each week, basically.
And that pulls up the hospital admissions because they're a percentage, aren't they?
Exactly. So like, everybody knows like that, you know, the vast majority of people are fine, and it's only about 10%, rough number now, that go into hospital, and another 10% of that again, so a really, really tiny fraction, who need ICU care. But again, back to exponential growth, the longer this goes on and the longer our R number stays at 1.3, then we're going to be in big, big trouble there in a few weeks' time.
I think Dr. Nolan said on Thursday that parts of the country are now up around 1.4, 1.5, and Cork South Central Ward has one of the highest numbers in the country now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and that's what Tony Houlihan and the boys now are all so worried about, is that, like, by my now I did a very, very rough calculation now, and you can see it in the video. And by my calculations, we'll reach 282 ICU capacity in about 2 or 3 months. But What I didn't take into account is that that's total ICU capacity, and that's not taking into account, the people who are in there for
kidneys and cancer and hips.
Exactly.
Yep.
And just one other thing, one kind of important thing I'll say is that all the comments there were saying, "Oh, that's expert stuff," from me, and all this kind of stuff. But this is me with leaving certain maths.
Yeah.
That's a very, very relatively low level of maths that I'm using here. The lads who are making the decisions here, they have PhDs in this kind of stuff. So, if you're kind of questioning what Tony and all these lads are saying, just think about what I've just explained. They have done 6 or 7 years at least study on this. They know what they're talking about. And if they say that they're scared or they're worried about what's coming down the line, by God, you better believe them, really.
Yeah. All right, listen, thank you for that, Diarmuid. Diarmuid McCarthy is a maths teacher in Carrigaline Community School. Thanks for that. I think we might post that video so you can watch it. It's just a good explanation of graphs and how, as the number of cases goes up per day, because of just nature, because of the way it is, it drags all the other numbers up. It's very well done, and we'll put it up. We'll share that because it's well worth a look. And it is only leaving Cert Maths. 1850 71